Tanner, ooh, a little hot. Tanner is a barista at Starbucks where I frequently visit. And Tanner, on his 10-minute breaks, usually comes over and sits down beside me, and we usually have conversations. He is in a small group, and he's also leading that small group, and he is just a good friend now. And he asked me the other day, he asked me this question. He said, what's the difference between kindness and love? What's the difference between kindness and love? That was the same day that Starbucks went mad. I mean, there was anger in that place. I get there early, but a little bit after that, people started showing up. There were 19 people waiting on drinks that day. Some of them had been in there for 20 or 25 minutes. It was a madhouse, and I mean, it was a madhouse. I mean, they were mad. People were wanting their drinks back, their money back, and they were trying to do that, and people are trying to get the drinks there and not. And after 2 hours, the picture that you see on the screen is actually the number of drinks that were just left there. These were there for 2 hours. And I began to think about the question again that Tanner asked. What's the difference between love and kindness? There was no love and there was no kindness at Starbucks that day. I can guarantee you that. But all of us have an opportunity to love. But in many of those cases, we choose to be kind. Because kindness is that momentary benevolence that you have toward an individual. I can be kind and yet not love you. I can be kind and yet not show you my love. When I was talking to Tanner about this, I was telling him about that and kind of a momentary benevolence that kindness is. And then I said, you're going to have to help me understand the word love. What are you talking about? I said, we have a difficult time defining the word love. Because when we define love as I love my sweater, I love my dog, I love my cat, I love my car. I love these things. I said, that's really difficult for us to understand exactly what type of love we're talking about. I love my wife. I love my children. I love my grandchildren. It's a very difficult thing to say, I love all this. I said, it's interesting, Tanner, that in the Bible, in the Greek section of that Bible, the New Testament, in that Greek section of that Bible, there are 6 different words for the word love. 6 different words for the word love. We have one that represents all 6 of those. I said, it's really hard to define that and what that really means. And as I was thinking about that, I thought about John, the Apostle of John. And I was thinking about him as an apostle and him as the apostle of love. And it's interesting that John uses that word 110 times. 110 times in his writings. In 1 John, he uses the word agape, that Greek word for love, exclusively. Every time it comes up in that letter, he uses that word exclusively. Now, that word that defined, if you go to a lexicon and you find this is what it says. To love, to regard with affection, loving concern. That's what love is. Let me throw something out at you. If you got your notes, you can write this down. The definition of love is much deeper than that. The definition of love is defined by God's character in nature. People, if we want to know what love truly is, you have to know God. If we want to know what love is, we have to go to the one who is love. Look at this verse here in 1 John chapter 4, verse 8. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. People, if we want to understand the essence, the deepness of what love is, what John is trying to help us understand there in his writings, we have to understand who God is. We have to understand Him. We have to get into His mind and know love as it is in God's mind and not in minds of everybody else, not in a definition that's in a book. We have to know what love is as it comes through the mind of God and Him alone. And you go, but James, I don't know if I know what's in God's mind. I don't know if I can truly understand or search that depth of God's mind. So I don't know if I could really truly understand what love is. And I say, yes, you can. Yes, we can. And we can because, listen to this, the definition of love is defined by God's character and nature, but it is demonstrated by the life of Jesus. It is demonstrated by the life of Jesus. Listen to this. And we know that the Son of God has come and has given us understanding, so that we may know Him who is true. And we are in Him who is true. Who is this true? Who is true? Jesus said, I am the way, the what? The truth and the life. God is truth. There is a spirit of truth. That which is in us is God. It is Jesus. It is the Holy. It's the oneness of God that lives within inside each and every one of us. In His Son, Jesus Christ. Here's a great statement. Love this statement. He is the true God and eternal life. Jesus is the true God and He is eternal life. No one comes to the Father except through me, Jesus said. No one comes to the Father except through me. How important is love? You see, I've got a bunch of chairs on the stage today. In just a moment, I'm going to ask any high school through adult to fill these chairs up. When I do, just leave the chairs where they are. I've got Jason Engelkey to sit in that one because he's got strong legs. How important is love? In 1 John chapter 4, verse 13, it says, whoever does not love, listen, abides in death. All of us run around in social circles. All of us have these people that we run around with. Either in our work, either in our schools, or at church. These chairs represent your social circles. And so I need 24 people to sit in a chair. I need you to come quickly because this sermon will last a whole lot longer if you're not quick. So you need to fill up a chair. So please just come on up here. Just get out of your seat. I need 24 people now. Anybody? Let's go. Okay, I can have some women too. I got 1, 2. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Jason. Go ahead. I've still got 3. 3 more adults. Come on. Yeah, right there. I got 2 more here. Got 1 more back there. 1, 2, 1 more. I need 2 more people. 2 more. I need 1 in my broken chair here. Over there. Which would be hard. Be careful. I need one right there. I need one more person. I got one more chair. You got a stool back here. Stafford, thank you. Yay. Right back there. Okay, these represent, these chairs and these people represent our social circles. And so let me go through those just a little bit. Right here you will see the in group. This is a group that everybody enjoys, everybody loves one another, they care for one another, and this is the in group. And this is the person right here in the middle that is the one in the center of everything. That kind of sits there and goes, look at me, here I am. I'm the center of this, all this in here, okay? And everybody has one of these groups at work, at church, and in your school. And then you also have the one in this group that's kind of the disgruntled one, and everybody... He's not really looking in one, but he's kind of disgruntled, and he's just kind of looking out all the time. And everybody's like, oh, no, come on back. We're sorry. We didn't mean to hurt your feelings and stuff. And so this is the one that's kind of, sad and kind of worried about that. The two out here, on this side right here, these two people are actually the circle. They're not in. They're close, but they're not in. This is the one, I need you to a little bit taller, Stafford. There you go. This is the one that it really does, is the pessimistic one, the skeptical one, the one person that's looking down in the group saying, I don't want to be like them. I don't care. I mean, it's just, but he's always around, but he's still the one that's always kind of skeptical about the group. Right here, where Miss Denise is, we have I call it the throne chair. The chair of power. This is the chair that everybody kind of looks into your social circles and go, oh, I know that person. It's a person at work that has the power. It's a person at work at church that has the power. It's a person at school that has the power. Lazy chair. You have those at work, you have those at school, you have those at church, the people that are just lazy. They just don't do anything. They're just sitting there just enjoying themselves. And then you have the children. Haven't you ever said at church, haven't you ever said at work, haven't you ever said at school, quit acting like kids, grow up. That's who this represents in your social circle. Back here, let's see, face this way. Okay. Back here are your neighbors. So at church, I've got neighbors, people I'm close to in teams and committees, wherever I'm close to them. They're my neighbors. I work with them. At work, you've got neighbors in those cubicles. At school, you've got lockers. You can't choose these people. These people are chosen with you, and you work with them. You've got to be a good neighbor to them. And all of us even have a hard time, even in our own homes, with those neighbors. And while all this is going on, you have these people that are kind of sitting on the outside. You have this person who's just trying to hang on. People are kind of afraid. And so she sits beside here wanting to be a part, but can't be a part because she feels that here. The reason they're facing outward is because they're going out the door. Still turning around, looking back, trying to figure out, oh, maybe I'd like to come back, but I think I'm gone. And you have those people at work, you have those people at school, you have those people at church. Our last chair represents the chair of a person who's new, who doesn't know anything that's going on here, that's excited about being part of this group, that's excited about going to the school, being at work, being at church, and this person has no idea of what life is going to be like, but excitement awaits her. Excitement awaits you because you're wanting that journey into this new place. And what's interesting about all this is we, as believers, are called to love all these people at church, at work, and at school. And when Jesus was washing the disciples' feet, and I love what John 13, chapter 1 says, that last part of that verse where it said, Jesus loved them to the end. He loved them to the end. Jesus takes off his outer garment, he bends down, and he takes the feet, and it says he loved them to the end. Verse 1. And he washes their feet, knowing that every single one of those apostles are going to desert him. That Peter, who he grabs and gets his foot, and Peter goes, no, don't you dare wash my feet. And he says, Peter, if I don't wash your feet, you have no part with me. He said, well, hey, not just my feet, just wash me all over. And he takes him, loves him to the end, takes him and washes his feet, knowing that Peter is going to deny him. And then he comes to Judas, and he washes Judas's feet, knowing that Judas is going to betray him. And he loved them to the end. If anybody in this group, in your social circles, if they denied you, if they betrayed you, if they deserted you, here's the question: would you love them? In here, that has happened to us. And we're harboring those grudges, we're harboring that hatred, we're harboring those things in our own life because those people deserted us, they betrayed us, they denied us. Unlike Jesus, who loved them to the very end. We are called to love people to the very end. Okay, thank you all. Appreciate it. You can go back to your seats. God's love is unconditional. God loves all people. For God so loved the world, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. Eternal. Will you love to the very end? Well, one thing that these apostles could not say, they could not say, Jesus did not love me. They could not blame Jesus for his love for them and say, Jesus never loved me, that's why I'm in this condition. No, Jesus loved them to the very end. It's our decisions, our ways, our life. God. us. And He loves you. He loves each and every one of us. Listen to this verse. We love because He first loved us. He loves us. And He loves us to the very end. If anyone says, I love God and hates his brother, he is a liar. For he who does not love his brother whom he has seen cannot love God whom he has not seen. Do you understand exactly what John is trying to tell us here? Loving God is an expression, loving your brother is an expression of loving God. If I don't love my brother whom I have seen, I can't love God. I can't love Him. And this commandment we have from Him. This commandment we have from Him. Read this with me, all of you. This is a commandment. Read it, everybody together. Whoever loves God must also love his brother. Whoever loves God must also love his brother. Everyone who believes that Jesus is the Christ has been born of God. And everyone who loves the Father loves whoever has been born of Him. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and obey His commands. People, it is very easy to stand up here and say, in our lives, and say, well, I love all these people. I love all these people. What kind of love are you talking about? I can guarantee you most of us are kind. Most of us are kind to every single one of these individuals in our social circles. But do you actually love them? Do we actually love them? How many of us avoid some of these people? How many of us hold those grudges toward these people? Listen, I realize there's evil people in this world. I get that. And I know that we're supposed to avoid them at all costs. But most of the people in my social circles aren't evil. They're different. They're weird. They're difficult. But they aren't evil. And we are called as people of God, their lives, and be connected with Matthew 22, it says this, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. On these two commandments hang every single law that was ever written by God. Every single thing that He did was written and hung. It hangs on the love that we have for God and the love He has for us and the love we have for our neighbor. Everything hangs, depends on this. And then in John 13, verse 34, it's not going to be on the screen, it says this, a new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you. You love one another as I. You talking about a standard that He raised? You talking about something that just went, man alive. He raised the standard of what love was. My love is not the love that I think is what is appropriate. It's what Jesus thinks is appropriate, what God thinks is appropriate. That's the kind of love. My love that He's looking for is a love that loves like Jesus did. Is that how we're loving others? Is that how we're loving people in our own lives? Let me give you 5 things real quick. Here they are. Those difficult to love, 5 things you can do. The first one is this. Write these down. How can I extend myself with all my vulnerabilities and insecurities into the life of this person regardless of the outcome? How can I extend myself with all my vulnerabilities and insecurities, all the baggage that I have? How can I actually, with all this baggage that I have, how can I actually love and actually extend myself into the life of another person, no matter the outcome? And see, everybody has baggage. The thing about this chair over here, think about these two chairs. All of us are broken just in different places. Every single one of us have baggage. And yet we're called with that baggage to enter and extend ourselves into the lives of others who have baggage. How many of us at the woman on the well, when she came toward you, if you knew her background, if you knew that she had had 5 husbands and the one she was living with was not her husband, if you knew all that about that woman who was coming to you at that point, at that well, and Jesus is sitting there, would you extend your life into the life of her? What would you have done, knowing her background, knowing where she came from? Here's the second thing, B. How can I truly act with the deepest of love toward this person without partiality? Without partiality. Jesus was no respecter of persons. He didn't allow wealth. He didn't allow income. He didn't allow any of that to taint his interaction with people. He entered into the lives of people no matter who they were without partiality. I think about the sinful woman in Luke chapter 7, who's there down weeping, and it says she's standing weeping, and then she bows down and she actually is washing Jesus' feet with her tears. And as she's washing Jesus' feet with her tears, she's cleaning them with her hair. You know, Simon there, the Pharisee, said, man, if he was a prophet, he would know what type of sinful woman this woman is. Jesus was no respecter of persons. Which brings me to C. Do I often choose to protect their feelings and emotions to avoid discomfort? Do I often choose to protect their feelings and emotions to avoid discomfort? Before Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving, I heard about it. How many of you know what the switch witch is? Any of you? One? Okay. Couple people? Switch witch. So this is a thing now. The thing is that instead of telling your children, no, you can't have all that candy, instead of telling them, you know, it'd be better if you didn't eat all that sugar because we're kind of not eating all that sugar candy. Instead of doing that, they tell their children, they say, hey, listen, the switch witch is coming tonight. And so what you do is you put your candy out on the front door and leave it outside. And in the morning, the switch witch will come and take all that candy and give you a nice new... It's a thing. And all of that just so they won't harm their kids' feelings. I just want to go, get over it. And we do that, listen, we do that with a lot of people in our lives. Instead of entering into the discomfort of a hard and difficult conversation, we'd rather just not have that conversation. D, what boundaries should I set with this person? Jesus set boundaries. He set boundaries out of love. Do not murder. You've heard it said. Jesus says, but I tell you, do not hate. And then what did he say after that? He said, you heard it say, don't commit adultery. I say, do not lust. Why? That was out of love. It was out of love. And wronged or neglected. This is hard. This is so hard. Am I willing to love them and myself enough to let go of the anger and resentment, even if they don't apologize? When wrong or neglected, am I willing to love them enough to let go of the anger and resentment, even if they don't apologize? How many of us are still carrying, and we're in a box of blame, a box of anger, a box of resentment? We're in that box because we don't want to forgive, because we can't forgive, because it's their fault and not my fault, and then we just stay in that box. And love demands, like Jesus, to forgive. To forgive. When I think about love and Jesus' love, I think about the woman caught in adultery in John chapter 8. Jesus is in the temple. There's a lot of people that were wanting to hear him, and he sits down and begins to talk to them and begins to teach them. All of a sudden, there's these men that come in, and they throw this lady in front of Jesus. The crowd dispersed because all the men have these stones in their hands and these rocks in their hands. And they throw this lady, who's almost half naked, in front of Jesus, and Jesus is sitting there. He stands up. And all of them look around, and these men are surrounding this woman, and there's anger and there's bitterness in their voices. And they look at Jesus and they go, hey, this woman, we caught her in the act of adultery. In the act of adultery. You know what the old law says. The old law says that we stone her. What do you say, Jesus? What do you say? Jesus goes down on the ground, starts writing. And all the time, that lady is in front of him. She is uncontrollable in her tears. She's crying. She's known she's caught. She's sitting here in shame. She's standing there just bawling her eyes out. I can just see Jesus locking her eyes, his eyes with hers, writing on the ground. And eyes locked. And slowly, her crying changes because she sees something in Jesus that she did not see in everybody else. He stands up and he says, you who are without sin, you cast that first stone. Then he goes back down on the ground, kneeling, eye contact. And by this time, she's quit crying. Because all of a sudden, men start moving and leaving. He looks at her and he says, and he said, neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no What if? The love of Christ in our work. Would it change the work? Would it change how you do that work? What if everybody in here, in church, loved like Jesus loved? Would it change this church? What if everybody in here had the love of Christ? Would it change you? Would it change you? I dare you to love the way that Christ loved. Let's stand and sing.